And so most places are going to be live very shortly.
Excellent.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we'll give people a chance to see this in their news feeds and get the alerts, etc., etc., etc. And so we can make some magic happen, so to speak.
Nice.
All right, yeah. All right, there we are. Cool. And then let's see what else. Let's see if I refresh this, if it'll take me directly to your feed. Maybe not yet. All right, then let's see about the workflow. Let's see your public figure page. Let's see what that's doing. Yep, you're live there.
Excellent.
Exciting. Part 1 of 2. So I'm excited to drill down on this.
Yes, me too. Are you going to put the Facebook link in Nifty, or do you want me to just go there on my own?
I can do that right now if you like. Copy and paste.
Thank you.
That's to your public figure page. And let me go to your profile page too. Copy, and let's, yeah, you're live on your profile page too. Cool. And there you go.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem. And do you want the your YouTube channel there too, or do you have that?
I have that.
Okay.
It's okay.
Cool. Awesome. So I guess we're going to talk about this a little bit once the we actually go live. But so you actually had an entire city outage of internet yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. At least half of the city that I'm in, and so it didn't come back on until about 7 o'clock last night, and then even up until just a little while ago, it was a little sketchy. So I was concerned about our broadcast today, but it seems to be running fine now, so that's good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I
Yes.
think we were pretty much at the tail end of things yesterday, but whatever cleanup, button up questions, whatever might have you that we need to cover that didn't get handled yesterday, we certainly can do that, and then uh, and then continue with today's topic, which is a twofer.
Yes, yes. You want to kick us off today when we are officially live?
Oh, I mean, I'll kick it to you, but yeah, I mean, this I think you should do the teeing up and then pass it back and forth.
Okay.
And let's see here. I'm sure that's your public figure page. That seems to be where you had the majority of your interactions. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, we are live.
Here we are.
There you go.
Yes. Back at it again.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully a little bit more stable than yesterday, right?
Yes, yes. For all those that were with us during the great outage, internet outage of 2021, half my city lost the internet, which really shows us how how tied we are and how dependent we are on the internet now, because, oh my goodness, without the internet, what are we going to do? So, but we're up and running again, and Joshua and I are excited about sharing some more ideas and insights that will help you to improve your business, improve your momentum, and improve the quality of your life. So we're excited that you're here with us today.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, I don't know if you with all your internet troubles, I don't know, Tim, if you had an opportunity to see any of this, but at the tail end yesterday, I invited people that if they want to for today and or Thursday, if they are interested in coming on with us and going deep on something, that we could certainly do that, and they should reach out to you by private messaging you on Facebook and let you know what they want to discuss, and we'd make time for it. I'm sure there's going to be lots of interaction today and lots of great things to drill down on. We, as people can probably see from the description, we have a ton of really juicy stuff that we can dig into today, and of course it's going to be a two-parter because we're going to finish it out on Thursday, also at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So there's the little reminder plug for everybody to put it on your calendar for attending live then.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So I thought it would be interesting if we talked a little bit about one of the symptoms of mental malware, which is procrastination, and how procrastination can actually help you grow your business. Most people call up because they're struggling to follow through. They can't get started, or they get started, but they don't go all the way to completion with their goals. And so they call up saying, I just got to stop procrastinating. And I always thought that, what if procrastination was your best friend? Procrastination, in the traditional sense, procrastinating means that you've associated pain to the goal, or in some way you think that following through is going to create emotional or physical discomfort for you. And so our brain pushes away from that. However, procrastination also might be a sign that you actually have mental malware, and it can be an opportunity for you to do an auto scan on yourself and figure out if in fact there is mental malware infecting your results, infecting the way that you're focusing or what you're paying attention to or how you're following through. And if that's the case, you would want to get rid of that mental malware before you did anything else. And the problem with mental malware is that we don't realize it's there. And so no matter what we try, it just doesn't seem to work out. So we work harder, we add more programs, we try more techniques, we dig more 1-foot holes. If you caught our live stream from last Friday, and the malware won't prevent you from experiencing the kind of results or feelings that you most desire. And so if you're procrastinating, actually that might be an opportunity for you to go, all right, why am I procrastinating? Maybe it's a sign that I've got some mental malware and I need to do this auto scan on myself and figure out where it is, what it is, and then remove it. And that actually creates an opportunity for you. So I thought we'd talk about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It's kind of interesting. You have a great metaphor that you shared with me several months back about not being able to see the prescription label when you're inside the bottle. And you say it better than I do, but I just want to kind of tee this idea up for everybody and for you to twist on for a bit and chew on for a bit. But it's interesting to me because once you get used to being able to observe the quote unquote unobservable or unconscious, right? It actually becomes easy, and it becomes easier and easier once you get the general gist of it. Like in the beginning, it definitely helps to have somebody facilitate it. And I mean, that's in essence what you do with all of your, your 15,000 plus one-on-one consulting sessions that you've done. That number still boggles my mind. People just I don't think they really get how many, how much that is of your lifetime and of your interaction with people. And it's just a phenomenal number. But I would imagine that a big piece of what you did with them, and then what's going to be able to happen with this program and being able to reach out to multiple people simultaneously in a group setting, is that you get them used to starting to see the unconscious in a different fashion. And the thing that I am so excited about the way that this program is being structured is that from the get-go, I think something is like, it might be really difficult yourself to see your own unconsciousness, but as soon as there's the slightest glimmer of a hint or to tap into it, it's really easy to see it in other people. And so it's much easier to see those conversations, to hear those conversations that are going on mentally for them in other people, and recognize what it is separate from your own, and then being able to bridge the gap between those people and yourself and how that shows up in your life. So I just wanted to kind of tee that up for us to drill down on. And I do have some distinct insights that I think could be really powerful for people to use with procrastination, with other things in terms of how to really dig into it. But I don't want to go too far off tangent too soon. So,
well, we're definitely going to want to hear those insights from you, because they're always good. While you were saying that, I was just looking to see who is joining us. We've got Sanko is with us, and Brian B. and Pam is with us. So thanks for being with us today. Agata, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Please forgive me if I'm not. So is with us as well. So sometimes people say, Tim, how is it? Are you exaggerating that you did 15,000 individual hypnosis sessions, that you provided
right.
that? And the answer is that's not an exaggeration. That's actually, I started going through client files. This is how I did it. So, of course, I've been in private practice for 26 years. So that's a long time, right?
Right.
But during my practice, what I had done was I was taught that you would schedule someone at 10 a.m., at 10:20 a.m., at 11:40 a.m., and then 12 p.m. So every 20 minutes. And I would bring someone in, I'd figure out what the challenge was and what the outcome was. And then I would get them into the hypnotic state, and then I would have them listen to a little bit of an audio program to get them relaxed and help them feel more peaceful and at ease. So kind of priming them for the session. While they were listening to that audio program, I'd jump into the next room. I had 4 treatment rooms. I'd jump into the next room, say hello, figure out what the problem was, what the solution that they wanted was, and then get them into that hypnotic state, and then have them listen to some automated programming. While they were listening, if I had enough time, I'd start the third person, or I would go back into the first room, and then I would start doing the work. I would be able to figure out what the mental malware was, what the limiting beliefs were, what the pattern was that had developed that was causing values conflicts, which is when one part of you wants one thing and another part of you wants something else. And so
Can you talk about that, Tim, in the context of like running your own business or building your own practice or running a freelance business? Like, how does that show up, the values conflict? I think that's so important to really grasp.
Yeah. So it shows up by in a variety of different ways. There's countless ways it can show up. And a very simplistic way is, I want to make a bunch of money, but I don't want to work all the time. And that becomes this conflict. I know people will say that you don't have to work. You can work an hour a day and make $1 million. Yeah, if your dad is rich, and gives you $1 million, you could probably do that. But if you started from the ground up, that's impossible. You have to do the work. You've got to develop yourself. You've got to learn so much about growing a business and being effective and believing in yourself, and then learning how to get your message out there. So another values conflict might be, I want to really lead people, but on the other hand, I'm afraid that I'm going to be an imposter, or I'm not going to know enough, or I'm not going to be able to really lead people if there's too many of them, or what if they're more successful than me, or what if they make more money than me, then I won't be able to help or serve them. And so that battle of wanting to make a bigger difference and play in a bigger way, versus holding back because of fear that you might be a fraud or you have that imposter syndrome, creates another conflict where you're fighting your brain. Another one might be, I want to get out and do more social media or videos or regular podcast, or maybe do public speaking, but I'm afraid that I'm not worthy of that kind of success. That what if it actually works out and I don't feel like I'm worthy of that, right? Then it creates a conflict, because no matter how much you try to succeed, right at the end, it will seem like it falls apart.
Right.
Or you build it up and it crumbles down. You build it back up, it crumbles down. Or you'll get so close to pulling the trigger, right? You've built everything, you've put it all together. All you have to do is push the button to go live, and for some reason you don't. Oh, there's always an excuse. There's always something else that you think maybe you need to do instead, or some family thing comes up, but really, it's the fear that if I flip that switch and I actually go live, again, something bad might happen, or I'm not worthy of it. And those conflicts, sometimes we're aware of them and we just don't know how to get rid of it. Other times we have no idea that those conflicts are there, and it just makes us feel so frustrated. And so instead of saying, well, there must be a conflict in my unconscious mind and I just need to resolve the conflict, what the mental malware makes us do is think, what's wrong with me? How come I can't do this? Why haven't I followed through? Why can't I stay motivated or focused? There obviously, there must be a part of me that doesn't want it. I just read an article from someone who said that if you're not fighting for it, then you don't deserve it. You must not want it bad enough. Maybe that's what it is. But then we just feel sick to our stomachs because we realize that's not the case. I want that success. I want that feeling of satisfaction that I know that I'm growing, that I'm making a difference for other people. And it makes me more mad when someone says that it's my fault.
Right.
So these are common examples of values conflicts.
Yeah. And I think a big one that I know at least was prevalent in my life was that you can't be wealthy and happy simultaneously, as though the two are mutually exclusive. So if I want to be fulfilled and live a balanced life and deliver great impact to others, and then and make a meaningful contribution in the world, then I must take a vow of poverty, and because the two aren't compatible, right? Because if you're rich, then you can't be happy and you have to be evil. And I mean, I'm saying it to an extreme, and I'm really just playing off of what our mutual friend Randy Gage talks about a lot, or used to talk about a lot. I don't know if he still does, but every single message that we see in the media is that being wealthy is evil, that having a lot of money is evil, and it's always portrayed by those people that are the evil villains, the arch nemesis. And I think that gets drilled in us. And while it might not be a value conflict that we might be consciously aware of it when we're younger, pretty soon it just becomes operating, invisible in the background, because we just get used to it, and we don't see it any longer. But then somebody comes along and points it out to us, and while the initial reaction, depending on what your other type of malware that you might have running, or your other value conflicts might be going on, while your reaction might be to strike back, to lash out, to get angry or whatever. And but if you then start to internalize it and not look at it as it meaning anything, then you can start to see it very clearly. Or sometimes you can say, well, I don't have that problem, but so and so does. And I think that's there's a little trick that I've gained for myself there that I think might be valuable for people. And before we get into any of that, I just want to say, what's up, Max Delicious? Thanks for tuning in, man. Good to see you. Glad you were here. Ooh, Alexander Wayan said procrastination is also creating the challenges one takes on when time and the goal are approaching fast, and the rush after careful planning of completing and accomplishing those goals are done on time. Let me take a second, because I was reading that, to actually digest it and understand what you're saying there, Alexander. And in the meantime, Tim, I'll turn it over to you to chat.
Hey, Joshua, keep going for a second, because I don't know what's going on here, but now my microphone is messing up.
Oh,
So
well,
it
isn't
keeps
that
turning
dandy?
off the volume. I think that the devil knows that we're putting on such good information that he's trying to sabotage me in some way. So hang on while I try to get my mic situation figured out. But
All right, so
continue to help people understand how that malware interferes with our ability to be successful.
well, here's the way that I've taught myself to kind of look at this over time, is that anytime I'm triggered on any subject, and by triggered, I mean like I'm having an emotional reaction that's very strong and automatic, that I'm not pausing to think about my thoughts, that I'm not pausing to actually respond, but I'm automatically reacting. And it's that space between stimulus and response. But when we're triggered, like we're just in automatic pilot mode, and boom, somebody pushes this button, and our automatic response is to respond in this way. And so that's what I mean by triggered. And so what I've trained myself to do is that every time I feel like I'm getting triggered, that I stop in hindsight and take a look at the interaction. What was I thinking? What was the exchange looking like? And how was it that there was something in me that I was pushing onto the situation, either mentally or into the situation, where I now saw an attack or something that's going to trigger that automatic response. And it's not so much the other person, it's me. It's not so much the other situation, it's how I'm thinking automatically, reacting to the other situation, as opposed to pause for a second and really evaluate something and then choose out of responsiveness what my response is going to be. And when you can pause between that stimulus and response, and I think it was maybe it was Stephen Covey in 7 Habits, when he first pointed out like that space between stimulus and response and the ability to pause there. And that's really what gives us so much power over our lives, is that we don't have to react. Like we're not running on our base caveman instincts anymore to protect ourselves, yet we still behave as though we are. And so what I've done for myself, and it's a much longer road, frankly, it took me probably 12 years to really dig deep with it and get to some of the root issues by doing the meditation, the mindfulness, and doing this on my own, to find this, that had I known you 12 years ago, Tim, I could have shortcutted a lot of this process, I'm sure. But now I can actually see my unconsciousness, because it's all lives in where my reaction's coming from when I get triggered. And it's not so much the actual situation or the circumstance that triggers me or triggers any of us. It's not the exchange with somebody else. It's the story that we're making up in our mind about the situation, about the exchange, about that, and what we're projecting onto the scenario, onto the circumstance, onto the conditions of what is, that we're then allowing to divide in on itself, like we were talking about a little bit yesterday on multiplicity, and making copies of copies of copies, where it divides on itself, and it's taking up lots of space. But now we're getting distracted off of like if I just see that it's a story that I've told myself, if I can just see the unconsciousness that triggered it, and I can see it for what it was my reaction. It had nothing to do it. Now, it doesn't absolve anybody of, if they've wronged you or whatever. I'm not saying that stuff like that doesn't happen, but your choice of getting ticked off and letting that control your attitude, or your what you see as possible for yourself, is under that, you have absolute power over that. Only, the malware tricks us into believing and solving wrong problems and going after the surface level stuff that are the triggers. And, if I could just shut up so and so, and I could just get them to, see things my way and come around to my way of thinking, then I'll be happy. If you do what I want you to do, then I'll be happy. If I can control you and can control the conditions and make you see the light, then it'll make me happy. And by the way, you shouldn't behave that way because you're making me unhappy. Forget about what it makes you or not. And in reality, none of that has any effect on how I get to feel. None of it. Except, unless I allow it to be so. So anyway, that's my little technique and trick, and that's now been like ingrained into me as a automatic. And it's not like I can still, like, I never get triggered, and it's not like I'm some Zen master. But what ends up happening is that I can correct the thing in hindsight. I can correct it in my memory and fix it in hindsight. And the more that I do that, the more that in the moment it doesn't come up as often. And so there's never, none of it's ever wasted if you will, take some time to work on it. So I've been rambling on, and you've been staring at me now for a bit, Tim, and I assume that means that your tech issues have been resolved?
They are resolved. Yes, I was just enjoying what you were saying, and it's very helpful to be able to be in real time, to recognize in real time that, what's going on, that what you're saying to yourself, that the story you're telling yourself about whatever situation you're experiencing in the moment, right, you're reacting to the story you're telling yourself and not just the situation or the event. And to recognize that in real time, so you can shift them instantly or within a couple of minutes, instead of saying, I had a bad day, or I've had a bad week, it's been a rough month. What? So most of us are trying to shift based on, looking after the event has happened. Oh, I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I would have behaved in this way differently. But when you are in real time, when you are more mindful, when you're more self-aware, then you're able to shift what's going on in the moment and recognize patterns and recognize, information that you wouldn't have noticed before. And so that's what happens when your blind spots are no longer blind. When you all of a sudden, what your buttons are and you have influence over them, know how to disconnect them. A lot of times, instead of saying, oh, you push my buttons, instead of trying to get other people to stop pushing your buttons, just disconnect the button. If you disconnect the button, they can go like this all day long and it won't have that response or that reaction from you. So there are definitely some tools and strategies that we can share today that can help you to become more mindful. I heard someone say recently that we all respond from our own level of awareness. So whatever level of awareness that we're at, that's how we respond.
That's
right. And so, and so instead of, judging people and being angry with people or disappointed with people or having, people pointing fingers and yelling back and forth, there's so much mistrust that's happening in the world today. Just all the finger pointing. And, I was talking about my son, talking with my son about this yesterday, how it's so interesting that, in the 1950s, the big scare was the Russians, right? Are you a commie? Are you someone who is a Russian spy? And everybody was paranoid and they wanted to grab their pitchforks and, just like they have been doing for hundreds of years, and and point fingers and mistrust one another. And then over the years, it continued to be, all right, well, now it's not the Russians, now it's the Chinese, and you got to watch the Chinese. And then after that, it was North Korea. Now we got to be afraid of North Korea. And then after that, it was terrorists. Now terrorists are going to come in and people from the Middle East. And so now we have to be afraid of them. And now it's shifted so much that it's Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, they're the threat, depending on what side you identify with. And it just continues to be more and more of this finger pointing. And now even it's, whether you're vaccinated or not, whether you believe you should wear a mask or you shouldn't wear a mask.
Yeah.
What I find is people keep drawing a line in the sand and making whoever doesn't agree with them wrong.
Yeah.
And that kind of judgment is huge mental malware. I mean, it's at a systemic level where we have been ingrained into us to mistrust and to be suspicious of anybody that disagrees with you, to yell louder instead of seek first to understand, then be understood, as Stephen Covey would say. We're just speaking louder, and you need to understand my point of view because I'm right, and you're wrong. And that is a systemic level of malware. So,
well, and it's funny about that is that it's become not just enough to, like, first of all, nobody's ever won an argument, period. You might stop arguing with somebody, but in your head you're going, like, it's not worth it. Like, and the other person might think that, oh, see, I won, I proved my point, but they're still not satisfied, because what they want is, when you get so doggedly, and this is what I was talking about yesterday in terms of arguing to be right, rather than to just be in the scenario, in the situation, and because what ends up happening is that it's not just enough to believe that you're right and to prove that you're right. You've got to have acquiescence on the other side, where everybody agrees with you that you are right. And and not only that, now that even that's not enough, is that what they previously thought was wrong. They have to denounce what their views are in order for you to feel happy. And that's just a really exaggerated version of what I was talking about earlier, where you have to show up, you have to have certain, rules and like, in order for me to feel good, you have to agree with me. And the problem that is amplifying this, and it's a problem or not a problem, is that, here's the thing, like, a lot of people don't realize this, but Facebook is not an impartial news feed. Facebook its algorithm is designed so that you see views that are pretty much in exact agreement with what you already believe to be true. Now, we do this anyway, right? Like, we have these filters, and we look through life with these filters on, but it really gets exaggerated, because what ends up happening, because the stuff that gets curated in your news feed is stuff that you already agree with, and everybody else that's saying things are already agreeing with you. It gives the point of view, and it really drives this home, like what you were talking about with politics, is that either side is like, see, everybody agrees with me, because all I'm seeing is everybody all they're showing me are those people that agree with me, that believe the way that I believe, and that's the way the news feed has been curated for you. And the same thing is going true on the other side, right? But it's now getting really pronounced, so it enhances what's happening with the malware through the unconscious mind, and really at an enhanced level. But now it's taking it to the nth degree, because it's reinforcing those views rather than giving you a chance to explore some other possibilities. Whether you agree with them or not doesn't matter, but just to explore different possibilities and not have it mean anything about you. Because if it means something about you, then that's a limitation that you're accepting on yourself. Anyway. Alexander just wrote something else here, and Sandra just joined us. Thank you, Sandra.
Yes. Hey, Sandy. So, the problem with always trying to be right is that you walk around making everybody else feel wrong. And that is not a good way to build trust and to keep lines of communication open. So whenever somebody wants to debate me on this, I always go back to what I've learned from working with high-performing teams in corporate America. If I was going to strengthen a company or a corporation, I would go in there and I would figure out how to unite the departments, how to unite the teams, how to go from competition to collaboration within your own organization, and how to stop the negativity, the disrespectful communication, how to bring out the unconscious biases that people have and the blind spots that people have. You can't improve what you're not aware of. I would try to get rid of the hoarding and the silos and the finger pointing. And everybody would say that that's a really great idea. In fact, they have through their employee satisfaction survey scores. I mean, I had one company I worked with, they went from 46% to 97%, as far as how happy are you working here, right? That was like almost doubled their employee satisfaction scores. How was that possible? By uniting people and bringing people together. And I started with the leadership team, helping them be more mindful of how they're coming across, getting rid of ideas that, well, people just don't want to work hard, or they're just being lazy, or they just don't care, instead of realizing that maybe it's your approach to leading them that's not working effectively. And when we did that, it was amazing what happened, right? So whenever someone wants to debate me and draw a line in the sand, or when I was watching the presidential elections and watching everybody go back and forth, there was not one United States of America. There was silos, and people wanted to be more siloed, and that is not what you do to build a high-performing organization, or certainly a country. I used to, and this is the last thing I'm going to say because I don't want to go into this stuff, but it's important because we used to think that, at least for me, I'm only going to speak for myself, but I remember as a youngin being taught that communist countries have so much propaganda, right? And they're always telling their people lies and trying to get them to think what they only want to think. And they monitor Google in China, and they're very controlling, and they really influence the way that people think. Well, that's happening in America in a big way because of social media, because of the platforms that we have with Twitter and Facebook and a lot of other platforms that continue. Propaganda in this country is able to spread like wildfire. And propaganda is mental malware, and it infects people, and it causes people to show up. If you ever think, why in the world would some person who seemed sane yesterday go out and become an active shooter, walk into a store and start shooting people? It's not always because they're crazy. It's because they've been receiving messages that caused them to believe that they were being patriotic, or that caused them to believe that somehow they were doing the world a justice, or they were willing to do, like the kamikazes in Japan that were crashing their planes into our U.S. boats and sacrificing their lives. They didn't want to die, but they felt like they were doing that for honor for their country. Napoleon Hill would always say, it's amazing how grown men would die for ribbons, but it wasn't about the ribbons. It was about the honor, right? And so we have a lot of this malware that's happening.
Wrong Napoleon.
Napoleon.
Bonaparte, not Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, that's a different. Bonaparte. Thank you for the correction.
Both Napoleons had great things to say, though.
They did. One had a better dance than the other. Oh yeah, and then Napoleon Dynamite. So,
that's another one altogether. Yeah. Alexander talks about, and I really want to get to this because he asked a really deep question that I think a lot of people, and I know that I used to think this way too, is isn't that we? And he's in response, Tim, to your statement a little while back about disconnecting the button. And he said, isn't that just disconnecting the button, stopping all communications and involvement on the individual who doesn't agree with you?
No.
And no, not at all. And I'm going to turn this over to you, but I just want to add my 2 cents in here. The idea is to be able to, Alexander, to be able to share it or to listen and not have it piss you off, not have it trigger you, so that button, they can't push it anymore. In other words, they can push it all they want. You can talk to them, and you can choose to see them for the genuine human being that they are underneath all the crap that you don't agree with. Right or wrong is just a judgment that we place on other things in other situations. So it's not a question of, yes, I mean, like, if we go back to the discussions about the news feed, then yeah, your news feed is being curated to only show you points of view and beliefs that already agree with what you already believe to be true. And so your worldview stays in a very limited bubble, but you're supposedly quote unquote happy, but then you don't see why everybody else is lunatics. And that doesn't matter what side you're on. Like if you can't see the center and you can't see something that is like triggering an astute response in you, then that is the first step, and it's to be that's freedom when you can stop, and something that was pissing you off or that was triggering you or that made you want to lash out and correct an injustice or whatever. And not to say that you don't have to, I'm not saying that you change your behavior. I'm not saying that you're condoning anything that you don't agree with, but when it no longer can affect you and you're still in that situation, now you've got the power. You've got the ultimate control because you can truly choose to reply as you see fit. So now
without emotionally being manipulated.
Right.
So great though. It's wonderful, Alex. I'm glad you're with us. And the point is to always keep lines of communication going. The point is never to shut down communication. If I go back to corporate America, we would do leadership meetings and leadership huddles because the point was always to continue keeping lines of communication open so that we're understanding where people are at. We're getting rid of miscommunications. We're clearing up assumptions. And something that I used to say a lot is we need to get clear on what story we're going to share with the hundreds of employees in this company. What is the message we're going to share? Because if we don't have a unified message, like if someone got fired or if there was a unhappy customer or if there was some problem or situation that happened that was going to impact everybody in the company, what is the story that we are going to share about this? Because if you don't share a story, then you're going to have 200 people create their own stories. And then you're going to hear gossip and hearsay, and one person's going to say something and someone's going to hear it and twist it and communicate it in a different way. And it becomes a mess, and it's so far from the actual truth. People these days, because they watch news feeds or because of the internet, they feel like we're all an expert in everything. And we all have these facts, and my facts are the right facts, and the facts that you show up with obviously are false, right? Which logically doesn't make any sense at all. But that's because of the malware that gets inside. So let's turn this back in to our individual and how we deal with growth, okay? Personal growth, professional growth. So one of the challenges that we have is, like you were talking about, Joshua, there's algorithms out there. If I watch a comedy on Netflix, it starts saying, hey, you like this movie, you'll probably
like this, right?
It's not a human being doing it. It's a computer algorithm that watches the movies I watch and then makes an assessment that I'd probably like these movies as well. And because it's showing me similar movies, I might click on one or two of those movies. And because I clicked on those two movies, the algorithm says, oh, you do like this. I'm going to give you more and more movies just like this. It's no longer allowing me to choose from all the movies, although I can if I go outside of that. But it's way easier if Netflix just keeps feeding me the kind of movies that it thinks I want to see. And pretty soon, I'm not even scanning for other movies. I'm just looking at the recommended list that Netflix has curated for me. And
it's funny that you bring that up, because I was just looking through the next Netflix queue the other day, and anything that said that it was a 63% match for me, I'm like, well, I'll leave that. Like maybe I have an interest in that, but I ended up saving it to my watch later list because I was like, well, this looks good from like something that I would enjoy. And and so, I just have to train Netflix on what I do like so that they get better at saying, oh, that's not a 63%, that's a 95% match.
Yes. And then it'll keep showing you what it thinks are 93% matches. And that keeps strengthening the algorithm, right? It keeps making the algorithm stronger. Now, let's go back to procrastination. So if we're procrastinating and we're putting things off, that creates another host of problems that would not have occurred if we were not procrastinating. And those problems also build on themselves, and they strengthen the mental malware that's in our operating system. So all of a sudden I'm procrastinating, and now, I have a bill that's coming up and I'm not going to be able to pay that bill. right? And so now I'm stressed out about that bill, and my wife asked me a question and I snap at her, right? Now I'm in an argument with my wife and we're going back and forth. When I wasn't angry at her, I was stressed about the bill, but secretly I was really mad at myself and hating myself because I didn't get off my butt and take action and follow through. And what does that mean about me? And so now it keeps populating more and more problems that we didn't have before. And we keep thinking it's because the economy sucks, or because there's something wrong with me, or because the government's not fair, or because God doesn't like me anymore, and then as a result, it just can be debilitating. And then we really just feel like I've got a lot more problems than procrastinating now. And if you get rid of that mental malware and you're no longer procrastinating, all those other symptoms go away. You're not arguing with your spouse or taking it out on other people. You have the money to pay your bills. You are able to create magic. Instead of trying to figure out how am I going to survive, you're switching to thriving and creating magic and adding value because you're running a different program in your mind. And I have seen people be able to switch turn on a dime and release mental malware and continue to move forward. I've also seen where people were able to upgrade some mental malware, but then they seem to download it right back in again. Now, the reason that often happens is also because of what we were talking about. It's who you're hanging around with, right? Who are you hanging around with? So if you're on Netflix and you're watching these movies, Netflix is going to say, here's more Netflix movies because it wants you to stay on Netflix. Okay. And it just reinforces that algorithm. Well, if you're watching the same news resources, if you're listening to the same exact podcasts, if you're listening to the same people who are telling you the story, the shock jocks that are either on CNN or Fox News, it's all about sensationalism on both channels. If you are keyed into that and that's all you pay attention to, and you're hanging around a set of friends and that's all they focus on, then it is going to get deeper ingrained inside of you. So one of the best ways to escape that is by creating more diversity in your life. So again, Joshua and I approach achieving goals in a different way, right? But we come together because now we have greater diversity and we have a greater chance of success of helping you to achieve your goals, whatever they may be. And
Alexander is expanding on some of this, and he's adding some great thoughts and ideas to this. So I don't want to get too far off course because he's drilling down on some questions that are important, and as well as on what I probably would think that other people have the similar thoughts running around. So the first thing that I want to acknowledge, Alexander, is what you said about that you see why somebody would disconnect the button. I totally get the point and agree with you. And then you, just a point of clarification about what you say, but losing that control when someone else disconnects with you is my frustrating point. Okay, can you expand on that? What does that mean to you? Why do you get frustrated if somebody else is no longer letting you push their buttons? If I'm reading this correctly, if they disconnect from you, are you saying they're just choose not to associate with you anymore and that type of thing, and that you lose control when somebody disconnects with you? What does that say in terms, what is the mental conversation that you're having with yourself that you would use the term losing control when someone else disconnects with you is my frustrating point? What is the mental conversation that makes you frustrated about that? Because that's where the gift lies in evaluating and just kind of letting that in. And then your point, Alexander, about sales. Yeah, I mean, scarcity works, right? Those countdown timers work. I personally can't stand them. I hate the scarcity ploy. I hate the whole thing. And frankly, from my point of view, I don't choose to embrace them. There was a time in my life where I used them a lot, and I pioneered a lot of those technologies, frankly. And my excuse was, well, they work. They increase numbers of sales. And that's true. Almost always they increase numbers of sales. And when you see these launches and everybody's promoting it, and the bonus packages are running out and there's so many left at this price, and the promotion's ending and all of that, that excites activity and action and extra sales for sure. And it increases your conversions. But you know what else it increases? It increases your chargebacks. It increases your returns. It increases your dissatisfaction rates with the people that purchase, because they're not purchasing for the right reasons. And so what it also does is it means that they're a one and done client or customer of yours. And so if you ever looked at where the real money in the business comes from, you would stop using all that bullshit, because what ends up happening is that you're working against yourself, because the real money in any business comes from repeat business and comes from the repeat clientele and referrals to your business from other people, and being able to serve and grow with them. And it's called the lifetime value of the client or the customer. And but that can only happen if you're truly providing value, and value in a way that they enjoy the value that they're getting. And we're getting a little bit off of course, and yet not, because value is a 100% perceptual conversation, meaning that value is whatever you say the value of something is, and you are 100% in control of whether something creates value for you or not. There's nothing that you can do to somebody else or somebody else can do to you to create value. It just is, right? And you determine what that is. So oftentimes when people are making these purchases out of scarcity, out of these, buy this package and this and so, and time's running out and you better get in now. Yeah, it increases the number of sales. And often it might even increase the profitability. When you factor in the amount of, returns and chargebacks against the increased number of sales that end up happening, you then wind up, if you work the numbers out, you wind up with more money in your pocket, except not if you continue to work the numbers out 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, 9 years down the road. If you will do that math and work out that and continue to serve and support those people and grow with them as they grow, whatever the product or service might be for them, where they, maybe what you are working with them on doesn't have a multiple return on, like you have multiple things that you can sell them, and that's fine. But if they got true value and the insights that they gain from making that transaction with you, you're going to be first on their mind to recommend wholeheartedly to other people when somebody else comes across that same the same issue that they solve. So this is just a particular shift in my awareness, frankly, of how I view marketing, but it really is directly related to this exact conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I appreciate everybody. Yeah, Alex says that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, awesome. So I appreciate the questions and the interaction and the conversations, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to turn this into a conversation where we can answer questions and give our advice and feedback, and make this a collaborative experience instead of a lecture, because we're not interested in that. So I thought maybe what we could do then is also talk about how to get off that hamster wheel. If you ever felt like you've been working so hard and you've got a million things going on, and you've built this hamster wheel up, and now all of a sudden you're having a hard time getting off this hamster wheel. Joshua, what's a bit of advice that you might offer for people who feel like, if I get off the hamster wheel, then it's all going to come crumbling down on me?
That's a great question and observation, Tim. And I think it relates, at least for me. That's why I asked you about, could you give some drill down examples about value conflicts? Because I think that at the core of it, that's what's going on, right? Like if you're on a hamster wheel, one part of you says, I can't stop running, or I can't stop doing what I do in this way, because if I do, then the value that I'm trying to achieve won't happen the way that it's trying to achieve. But the very act of running on the hamster wheel isn't filling me with energy. Like if it was an inspired action coming from within yourself, from your center, from your spirit, inspired from in spirit, from your inner to the outer, the act of doing that, even if it was quote unquote running on the hamster wheel, that would give you more energy. But the fact that running on that hamster wheel means that you're actually getting drained and you don't want to be on the hamster wheel, but you're afraid to stop running, is a clear indication that you've got outside circumstances and environments and locus of control pushing back on you, and you're allowing that to be the controlling factor. And I'm not saying that you can change it overnight, although you probably can. And I'm not even saying that you necessarily should. But if you can acknowledge that the reason that you're A, running on the hamster wheel, and B, that the hamster wheel is wearing you out, is because of a conflict, and the conflict is 100% a story that you've been telling yourself, and it's your reaction to that story. And as soon as you can start to unwind it, and this is why this is so hard, because I'll tell you what, like, plug your ears for a second, Tim, because I'm gonna use my my New York City street kid lingo for a second. The first time somebody told me that, I said, "You're fucking full of shit. You know, that's wrong." And I gave it right back to them, and I was like, "There's no way, you know, blah 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 blah." And I'm sorry for getting so graphic about it, but I just want you all to know how extreme it was for me, my reaction. Like, you want to talk about pushing back? I push back on this concept and this idea until somebody like Tim lovingly, without judgment, got in there with me and allowed me on my own to raise my level of awareness so that I could actually see that, in fact, it was my story that I was making up that was allowing me to feel that way. It doesn't change the situation. I mean, the situation is the situation. If somebody is a jerk and they are out to get you and whatever, and it doesn't change that situation. But the fact that I let that be a limiting factor for me, well, that took a lot of time and energy and effort, and somebody that could facilitate my experience and my increase of awareness so that I could then begin to do it for myself. And that's why I'm such a big believer in experiential training and facilitated training, where it's a co-created experience that it's not one leader, just the expert teaching it. And the job of that leader is not to make you more dependent on them. It's to make you become independent. It's to clear up all that uncertainty. It's to clear up and to give value, to give life, to eliminate the fear, to show people an idea that they can then take and choose to have it be their own, or whatever fits for them, whatever portion fits for them. And it enhances the idea rather than take away from me or take away from somebody else. It's can expand on and continue to grow. And so that's that's what I have to say about the hamster wheel.
Yeah, it's really good.
Sorry
really
you asked.
No, I love it. I love it. And I mean, that's how people really feel. You know, if you take the pleasantries away, when we're scared, when we're angry, when we're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, that's exactly how we feel. And so,
it's easy for you to say, Mr. Big Shot, Mr. Millionaire, but, I'm not you. Well, yeah, right. But how do you,
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I was thinking the last part that you said about that collaborative experience, why we want so much to facilitate groups instead of doing one-on-one coaching, is because of the power of the group. When I was leading, facilitating groups in corporate America, my favorite part was getting to the part where everybody else was giving their feedback. I would run these elaborate, cool experiences just so that I could ask people, What did you experience in that situation? What did you notice in that situation? How did you show up in that situation? And had the feedback that everybody else would give would, one, be so powerful because it was coming from the group and not from the guru, right? And two, it was always right on. I mean, they were very perceptive. And that was always my favorite part, not to go in there, oh, I'm going to teach you everything. No, I feel like you already know the right answers. You already have the right stuff. It's just a matter of clearing the malware out of the way so that brilliance can shine forth. And that's very difficult to do by yourself. So doing it with a coach is huge because they can reflect back. Even Joshua, when you were reading, Alex, when he was put that great question in there, you asked him a question based on the words that he was choosing to use, right? That's a very specific process that we use for doing malware scans. You know, we're even paying attention to the words you chose to use when you were expressing yourself, because it gives away what you're really thinking or how you're really feeling or what the mental malware programs are. Right. And so to have Joshua and I paying attention and running these malware scans is awesome. But if you want incredible results, what we do is we turn everybody else into a mental malware scan expert. And we teach the group how to help each other and help us, and we help them. I mean, it's so collaborative. The experience
and the transformation is so much faster and sticks.
Faster, sustainable. Yes, it's lasting and sustainable. You know, you don't want. It's not like going out of a seminar, 4 days, and I just walked on fire and I'm on top of the world, and then 2 days later I'm back in the same situation, dealing with the same feelings and emotions and problems. This is a experience where the changes.
And beating up on myself even more because I should know better by now.
Oh yeah, at this age, right? I used to say that all the time. And so when you create a foundational upgrade, the results stay.
That's a great word.
Yeah, the results are lasting. People would always say, well, how long is this going to work? Is it going to wear off? And so you always have to grab the steering wheel of your mind and keep driving it where you want to go, right? However, the foundational shifts of going from I can't to I can, from I'm not worthy to I am worthy, from I'm not enough to I'm more than enough, that I'm not lovable.
Just seeing where all that shows up too, how it all kind of plays out in life. Because, in the beginning, the reason why we get triggered and we have such an esteemed reaction to it is because it's so invisible, it's so unconscious to us that it can't be possible. And then as we start to get acclimated to it, then policing it becomes easier and easier when you're driving that mind car.
Yeah. So here's a strategy that hang on, I want to go back to the notes.
Something that you said while you do that, I just want to share something that you said triggered an experience that I had personally that is rather emotional for me, but I'd be happy to share it if people are interested. I can do it later on, or we can do it on Thursday. And also, I don't have to. If it's something that, but it was really a big breakthrough for me. And I'm happy to share the story, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, we're happy to hear the story. Go ahead and share the story, and then I'll share a 5-step strategy for how to recognize.
Well, I think it makes more sense to do your 5-step strategy right now because you were in the middle of that. So I just cut you off, and I just wanted to throw that out there. If by the same token, I don't want to derail the conversation if it's not going to serve people.
Well, we'll find out, right? So if people have other comments or questions or a certain way you want us to take this conversation, please leave that in the comments. And if you're watching a replay of this video, then still leave your comments and we will follow up and reply back to them. So I just want to mention real quick that Alex is providing more great ideas as far as reinforcing the idea of having a powerful group experience. He referenced like AA meetings where you have daily meetings, sharing experiences, reward giving and contributing. And then, if you continue to work, you can, have sponsorships and help others to improve themselves. And that's
Yeah.
really it. The better you get at helping others, the better you get at helping yourself as well. It's good to do both, right? To help others and then also to receive the help. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are really good at helping others, but have a very difficult time applying their own medicine to themselves, so to
Or
speak.
accepting it. Sometimes
Or
it's a worthiness issue, right? Where you don't want to accept help because it means that you're worthy of being helped, and you don't, maybe that's a core malware issue.
right, or you were trained not to want it. That I've had plenty of clients over the years who said that if I took care of myself, I was being selfish, I wasn't being a good Christian, that I was making it about me, and which is all false. That there's nothing wrong with loving yourself, taking care of yourself, empowering yourself. In fact, if you're going to be a good leader, you need to be successful so that people have a positive role model and someone to believe in, right? And so
So you can teach from experience, not from,
yeah,
do as I say, not as I do.
exactly. Yeah, you want that authenticity, because that really is what allows people to want to be around you, is because they can feel that your energy is congruent, instead of feeling like something's off. I don't know what it is, right? So, but anyway, here's my 5-step strategy if you want to start to use this to do some auto scans on yourself and start to upgrade some of the mental malware. So step 1 is identify the feeling that you're having. We'll just say it's an unpleasant feeling. So you might be feeling stressed or stuck or overwhelmed or pressured, or you're feeling like you're procrastinating, you're angry, you're resentful, whatever it is, you're holding on to that feeling. So step 1 is identify, what am I actually feeling, right? And then step 2 is, what would I have to believe in order to feel this feeling? Now, that's a question that you might have to ask yourself numerous times to get to the core belief that you have. Because usually people will just say whatever is the first thing that comes to mind, a very surface level answer, right? So Joshua, if someone is feeling stressed out, what might be, a reason that they have that just comes to mind why they're stressed out?
I'm overworked and underappreciated.
Yeah. So that would be a surface belief. I'm overworked and underappreciated. Okay. So what would you have to believe? Then you ask yourself the same question. What would I have to believe
that statement?
About that statement? What would I have to believe that I'm overworked and underappreciated? What would I have to believe to feel that way? That people don't care about me, or no matter how hard I tried, no one, it doesn't work out anyway, or no one cares. Mm-hmm. So, and then if you keep asking, well, what else would you have to believe then? And you just keep asking and notice if other insights start to come up. And every time an insight comes up, write it down, because there are different levels of malware, right? And that first story we tell ourselves, is usually the victim story. I'm overwhelmed. Well, usually you're overwhelmed because you are doing 5,000 activities instead of focusing all your time on the couple of high value priority, things that you should be doing. You've got 50 million things because you really don't have a plan, and you're throwing it all at the wall, hoping something's going to stick, right? Which isn't a plan. That's chaos. That if we stay busy, that somehow we're going to feel secure and it's all going to work out. When usually all it does is make us feel more stressed out. Okay, so we keep dialing down, until we get to the real fears that we have. The real fear is that it's not going to work out for me, that I'm not safe, that people are going to leave me, that people are going to realize that I really am a fraud. Our deepest fears that we have that really produce the stress. I'm not going to have any money, and then I'm not going to pay my bills, and then I'm going to lose the house, and then I'm going to lose my family, and then I'm going to be, I don't know, alone and homeless, and no one loves me, and I'm, all by myself, and I just die in darkness. alone, right?
And they
and
were
it can
right
be
to do it because
traumatic.
that's the way it was destined to be anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And it can just feel like life or death, the kind of stress and the way that we deal with it. What's always fascinated me is that when you shift that perspective, that same person 20 minutes later feels completely different, which means that you have the ability to shift inside of you already
Yeah.
and feel completely different. But you feel completely different because you've changed the story that you're telling yourself. And really, the only way you could change a story that you're telling yourself and believe it is if you get rid of the mental malware. Otherwise, you can fake positive thinking, and just say, well, I'm going to be fine and millions are coming into my life, but you won't believe it. You'll say, oh, bullshit, I'm lying to myself. I'm
Right.
delusional. I'm in denial. You're not dealing with reality. Right.
So
And
is that,
so
I lost count of the steps. The
that's
first
step
one was to
two.
get in touch with what you're feeling. The second was to about how many times do you have to ask, what do I have to believe in order to feel that way, to really get to some good juicy stuff? Like on average, is it 3 times, 5 times? I mean, of course it's till you get to some good stuff, but like, I mean, is there an average?
I don't know if there's an average. Let's say 5.
Okay.
Okay. And usually when you all of a sudden come up with an insight that you had not had, that's new, something that comes up that makes you go, ooh, something that pops up into your mind because you kept asking the question instead of glossing it over or saying, I don't have time for this, which is just code for fear. All right. Because we don't like to go into those places. But usually it's when you get a new thought that comes to mind that you are not expecting. And so it's really good to write these ideas down because you
Alexander
can,
is he's putting
yeah.
them in the comments. This is awesome, Alexander. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So writing that down, these ideas that come to mind, so you can go back and rewrite them, because those ideas that come to your mind, that's not the first time you've ever said that to yourself. You've probably said that hundreds, if not thousands of times to yourself over the years, especially under stress and pressure. So that's become an automated script in your mind. It's become like a hypnotic suggestion that no matter what I do, it's never good enough, or people don't appreciate me, or people never value me. And that script, is comes from the malware that was probably absorbed in you when you were a kid. And so it's been reinforced so much that we don't even catch ourselves saying it anymore. So that's step 2. Step 3 is a simple shift of what would you rather believe instead? What would you rather believe instead? Or you could ask yourself this way, what could I believe that would allow me to start creating momentum and also help me feel good while I'm going through the process? So it's like a 2-parter. What would help? What could I believe? Or what if I believe this, whatever it is, what would it be that would cause me to immediately feel excited or motivated, wanting to take action, and also enjoy myself while I'm doing it? The answers to everything are always available. It's asking the right question. The quality of the questions you ask yourself directly influence the quality of your life. And so if you ask yourself, what would I rather believe? That would make me feel like I could start taking action right now and I could actually enjoy going after what I want, then it's going to give you, all of a sudden your brain is going to switch focus. If you're focusing on what you don't like, what you're unhappy about, what you're uncomfortable with, what you resent, you're going to keep going in that direction. If you ask yourself a new question, it focuses on a new set of data, a new set of information. It causes your brain to figure out, instead of finding more reasons for why your life sucks and how it's unfair, all of a sudden, because you change the quality of your question, it's now focusing on, how do I find momentum? How do I actually start enjoying myself more? What feelings would I like to have today? Do I want to be creative or playful or resilient or zen or, whatever it may, enthusiastic, whatever it may be. So your questions determine what you focus on, which is very powerful. Okay. And then, of course, question number 4 is, if I was believing this new idea, if I had this new belief in place, what's a bold move that I could make? So if I believe that I was really confident and everything works out for me, no matter what it is, it always works out for me, what's a big, bold move that I could make? Reach out to somebody that's a real connector in my industry, or call that person that the relationship went sour and offer an apology. What's a bold move that I could make? Instead of telling myself that I can't exercise, what if I put on my shoes and I go outside and I walk around the house right now? I mean, I can't tell you how many times if people came to me to improve their health, Joshua, and we'd be standing in my office or maybe out in the parking lot, and someone would be telling me that I can't exercise, I just can't get myself to do it. And I would make them do 10 push-ups right then and there. And they would do it. I remember this one guy, he was over 300 pounds. He got down on the ground. He started doing push-ups, got back up all red-faced and defiant. And I'm like, you just did it. Stop telling yourself you can't do something that you can. At least own it. At least say that I'm choosing not to exercise. It's not that I can. I'm deciding I'm not. Right. And so people can do all kinds of stuff that they tell themselves that's impossible. I've watched people do the impossible for decades. So that's number 4. And then number 5 is take action. If you have a new belief and your mind's focusing on something new that you can buy into, and then you've clarified what your bold move is going to be, you're going to start feeling more excited. You're going to start feeling more momentum. You're going to start feeling more energy in your body. Use that energy. Direct it into taking that action. Make that bold move. Because what happens when you make that bold move is that you get a new set of experiences, a new set of criteria, because you'll have opportunities that will come from that you are not having before. We call it a new set of references. Whenever somebody says, oh, it never works out for me because it never has before, and they got all these references, all these experiences for times where it hasn't worked out before, which often it's because a lot of times things don't work out, or because you had mental malware sabotaging you and you didn't know it. Okay. So once we start behaving in a new way, we get new references that reinforce the new belief, that build our confidence, that build focus, that build motivation, that get us moving in that direction and staying moving in that direction.
Right.
Because we're having new experiences that are exciting now, that make you feel good. And that's a simple but powerful way to be able to reframe what's going on and catch any mental malware and start to change it or update it. So it's a simple approach that you can, I don't know if it's simple, but it's an effective, a proven approach that you can use right now to start identifying the real story, the real beliefs you're telling yourself, and then how to shift it.
That's cool. That's very cool. And I think it gets simpler and easier the more that you do it. It becomes automatic. Just like we are now automatically thinking a certain way without knowing about it. Once you start doing this and you start recognizing, oh, wait a minute, is that true? Did I really, am I, like, what is it, that feeling that anything less than empowered, what am I feeling like? Then you're now going within, and that becomes a habit if you allow it to be one for you. It's just another cue for you to look at it. And, the more that you do that, the more that you make the unconscious conscious, the easier it gets, and really the simpler it gets after that, because I don't know that you'd break it down into those 5 steps. I realized that I basically do a variation of that myself. It looks different, but if I wanted to think about the 5 steps and put it all in context there, it pretty much is there. It just and maybe I started off doing that way in the very beginning, but now it's, I don't think about it anymore. I can't not hear my old conversations anymore, because I'm just used to hearing them. So when I spot them in myself or in other people, I can't not see that anymore.
Yes. Yeah, I basically have one question now. I don't go through those 5 steps anymore. I have one question, and it's, what's my outcome? What do I want? Is what I'm telling myself and what I'm focusing on what I want? And I can usually tell by the feelings I'm having. If it's making me feel heavier or stressed, then obviously I'm not focusing on what I want. I'm focusing on what's in the way or what I'm afraid of. If I'm feeling lighter and I'm in a pleasant mood, then it's usually because I'm right on track. Even if things aren't going the way that I want, If I'm responding in a way where I'm still feeling light and I'm still focusing on, all right, here's an obstacle, let me knock it over and turn it into a stepping stone, or where's the creative opportunity in this mess that just showed up, right? Or, something bad might happen and I'm just going to have to deal with it because it's part of, life. And so let me just work through those emotions and then continue on with, letting my values and my mission drive my life. Then you get through it and you're able to recover quickly instead of feeling stuck for hours or days or weeks or months, or turning to food and alcohol or drugs or credit cards or online porn or all the gambling, all the different ways, other people's drama, all the other ways that we cause more problems that weren't there before, right? Because we're trying to numb out or distract from all the pressure that we're feeling, instead of just figuring out, well, what's the belief in mental malware and stories that are causing this pressure, right? You think, well, it's because I can't make my mortgage payment, but that's not actually the pressure. The pressure is the fear that's underneath it that is not allowing you to show up in a way where you could find your creative solution, right? So we can't try to solve, as you always say, we're trying to solve the wrong problem all the time. We've got to learn how to realize that the biggest problem to solve is find the mental malware, find those beliefs, that story, that universal fear. Now, I will tell you that even though we're giving some of these tools and strategies, and it's very good to use consciously, when we actually take people through our accelerated experiences, our approach is very different. We're really diving in and changing at a core foundational level that mental malware, where it first started, where we first got infected, because that is what creates the huge change. Because otherwise people will say, well, step 2 and 3 is just, this is what you're worried about and this is what you tell yourself instead. Well, again, what if I don't believe that? What if I'm not believing? I believe this old way for 30, 40 years. Now you're telling me that, oh, I believe in myself and things are going to work out. I'm telling my that for 5 seconds. I don't buy it. But when we go and we actually do the awakening experience and we go through and we do the operating system upgrade, it shifts right then and there. You don't have to talk yourself into it. You don't have to repeat mantras or affirmations. It just shifts. And it's a very powerful emotional experience. And that is what changes the game.
Yeah, and it really collapses time frames, right? Because the thing that I was pondering as I was listening to you, like what you now do with that one, what's my outcome that I want to create, and you starting there, the problem is that that's where a lot of us start, right? Without knowing that all of this malware is operating in the background. So if you don't do the work that you've done to get to this point where you can do that, right, then the malware is still going, it's still operating. Just because it's invisible, just because we're not aware of it, it doesn't mean that it went anywhere, right? So if you want to skip right to what's the outcome that I want, and I believe that that's what a lot of us are doing and have done, and why we're frustrated with all the programs that we've done, all the personal development, and where it worked for a minute and then all of a sudden it stopped working, or it didn't give us the same kind of results that it once did, or that kind of big breakthrough. And that's the benefit of being able to once and for all get rid of that stuff that's pushing on it, and then allow you to then take those things that you already have or enhancements to it, and now you can do that. So I don't know how long it took you to be able to personally get to just the one question and shift, but I'm sure it wasn't 8 weeks.
No, it took a long time to figure all of this out, and just thousands of sessions, over many, many years, until I started just seeing patterns. And I kept noticing the same patterns. When people think this way and do this, they get this outcome. When people think this way and do this, they get that outcome. And I started noticing the 10 most common self-sabotages. And if you turn that around upside down, it's 10 of the most powerful ways to use your mind to create your life by design. And I kept seeing it happen over and over. And then I would hear the same stories, and the details would be different, but the interpretations of what those experiences meant were always consistently the same. And this is what you say to yourself. You want to feel good. This is what you say.
I have to cut you off just for a second because I want to. Like Alex just posted something that is just so dead on. You're right there, Alex. He writes the definition of malware software intentionally designed to cause damage to a computer. Your brain is the computer. Yes, absolutely. And that's the whole point, and like that's the distinction, at least in my mind, between malware versus a virus, right? A virus can happen kind of innocently. It can, and it can mutate away, and it can have the same effect, but the malware is designed to wreak havoc in the computer. It's been programmed. Its set of rules is to attack. It's to intentionally design to cause that damage. And I talked about that on I think Friday when we first started this. So yeah, I could not agree more. And the thing that I think is so malicious about malware, as we're talking about it in terms of the mental side of it, the mind side of it, is that it really tricks you into focusing where the problem, it wants you to try to solve it, to try to cure the malware issue by focusing on the results of what the malware produces, the symptoms that it produces. It wants you to go after each one of those little symptoms that come up as it pops up so that you chase that symptom down and beat that up. Meanwhile, you're unaware that the malware is the real root issue here. And that's the whole core of why I'm so excited to be collaborating with you on this project, Tim. Right there, that piece of it. Because that's what I really feel like people, myself included, didn't understand for such a long time, and it's so powerful once you get it. That's what can really collapse the time frames.
Yeah, I mean, it is a game changer, and it breaks my heart because well, I'm going to change that. Okay, I was going to say it breaks my heart to see how much time is wasted, when people are struggling on this journey. But at the same time, that's a judgment. Everybody is going
Notice
through
the self-coaching that he just walked himself through. You got to witness him like doing it for himself. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's about paying attention to what you're saying, right? And so, which I'm always trying to do a better job of that, and not trying. I'm always doing a better job of that.
And he did it. He did it again. It's awesome.
I'm like Grammarly built into my brain. And so, but yeah.
It's Yoda. There is no try. There's only do or do not.
That's exactly right. Yes. So, if you've been struggling for a long time, well, welcome to the group. We all have. We've all been challenged, and if you're like us, you've probably been working on yourself for a long, long time. The challenge that I also see, or the mistake, is that we work on ourselves for a long time by ourselves. And again, that you just cannot grow as far as you can when you're doing it in a group experience. Napoleon Hill, one of the Napoleons who wrote the Think and Grow Rich book, he studied all the most successful people in the world during that time period. And he said they all only had one thing in common. They were all a part of mastermind groups. They are all part of a group where they got together with other like-minded people. Yeah. And that is what they all had, in the one ingredient that they all had in common. And that's why, having feedback, and not just feedback from me or feedback from Joshua, but feedback from other people in the group as well. That, I've been a part of group experiences where people were offended if other group members tried to give them feedback because they only wanted the attention of the person who was in charge. And I thought that was a failure from the person in charge. I thought that they should have addressed that, and that was a teachable moment for everybody in the group. But usually most gurus, because it feeds their ego, will let that stay in play, but I won't. Joshua won't, because that would devalue the power of all of us working together to be able to, it's like we're in a big ship and it's sinking and we've got to get to shore, and every single person has to contribute. Every single person has to put
It's
some
so
kind of
cool.
role.
I mean, not to get too far off course, but like every interaction is an opportunity for both sides of the equation, for everybody involved to get what they need to get from it for themselves, in addition to contributing to other people. And so that's really what I view your job, my job, as being as part of the facilitating, is making sure that everybody starts to see the value and can reap the lessons accordingly. Catherine wants to know, like, this is great, but like TikTok, guys, time to wrap it up, huh?
3 minutes, Catherine. I've got a client, so in 3 minutes, hang in there.
And Alex wrote a great insight. I get that all the time with my wife, and when we're in a fight, because I don't respond the right way, or right away rather. Sorry, and stare in silence. But I am responding back, it just in my head. Unfortunately, that unfortunately is a judgment, by the way, and you could choose to share that with her and to say, hey, like, I'm processing, and here's what's going on. Like, I don't want to react to this. And don't have it mean anything about you. It doesn't have to be unfortunate. You could have it be a cool thing, that you respect her so much that you want to make sure that you really give it its just consideration. It's just deserved. Anyway.
Yeah, you might just in that situation, just, if this is what she needs, say, hang on, let me think about this. What you said is really important. Let me think about this. And just that little verbal validation will let her know that you're thinking about it, instead of, it's on her, like, to remember.
You've at least heard it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it just improves, communication when you just give those little subtexts. So yeah, very good. All right. So anything to wrap up our today?
You know what? I just want to point out at the top here, in the very beginning of the description here, on all the places that this is posted, there's 2 links if you guys are interested. One is for the more specifics, the details that Tim put together in a PDF on the actual program itself, how it all works, the information there. And then if you're interested in finding out more about the enrollment process, how that works, enrollment's open till midnight, I believe, on the 25th, which is this Thursday. And that's the second link, and it'll share with you how you can do that. And if the timing's right and you want to join us, we'd love to have you. And likewise, if in your heart right now it just isn't the right timing or whatever, we understand. Whenever the time is right, we're ready for you. And so if you're saying, hell yes, I want to be a part of this, then let's do that. And by the same token, if you're not saying that, then let's adopt it from Alan Cohen and say, if it's not hell yes, like I'm in, then it's hell no, until it is an absolute, like, hell yes. And so like that. Anyway, that's what I just wanted to wrap with, because there's more stuff there, the more resources that they can look into and just find out more about what we're talking about, how we're framing this.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we can set up a call. I'm happy to chat with you and explain in more detail what to experience. It's all in that handout, that PDF that you have access to. So, but if you have other questions or you want to make sure that it fits for your specific situation, then reach out, because the whole goal of the class is not to be a one-size-fits-all or a cookie-cutter approach that you typically experience, where it's the same information just repackaged in another way, right? So this really is all about making sure that you get a powerful experience that you would if we were doing individual coaching, but we're doing it in a group experience so that you get the power of the group as well. So it really is a very cool experience that we have put months and months and months of thought and work into, so that we can create
2 separate lifetimes of experiences too.
Yeah. Well, and I run my programs one way and Joshua runs his programs another way. And then, so what we've been doing is keep collaborating, and well, this really produces the best results. And Joshua would say the same thing for his programs. And then we keep melding them together. And so it's very unique and special. If I wasn't facilitating the group, I would be joining it just because it is, it gives you that personal attention. It also gives you the group collaboration. It also gives you connecting with the people that are facilitating the experience in between sessions. plus all the other goodies that you would normally get in a training program. So, it just is the best of everything. And, and not at a price point of where it costs you $10,000 or $25,000, to be a part of it. So anyway, it's a cool experience, and we're going to be back live again on Thursday to answer more questions and to have more engaging conversations. So thank you to everybody,
Part
especially
2 of all of this.
Yes, thank you so much for all the great feedback, and Alex for taking notes for us. I appreciate that. It's
yeah,
awesome.
that was awesome.
Yeah. So, and thank you everybody else. Thanks, Catherine, for being with us today. And so, all right. Well, I think that's it for now. Joshua, any final thoughts before we close up for now?
No, let's wrap. And thank you very much, Tim. This has been really, really empowering to me personally. I've enjoyed every minute of this session today. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I've enjoyed it as well. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll talk to you on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
Sounds good. See ya.